Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jake Stu.
And today we're doing our top 10 directorial debuts of the 1990s. We had such a fun time doing our top 15 film scores, we've decided, you know what? Maybe we'll start doing top 10 lists more often. We'll add those to the rotation. So I stole this idea from the Speed podcast that I've been listening to, 50 miles per hour, which actually just ended. It had its 50th episode, and so it is over. But he did on that show, Chris Tapley, the host, had the top 10 directorial debuts of the 1990s. So I thought that was a really cool idea. And so Stu and I agreed that that's what we'll do this week. We'll do the next top 10 episode will probably be directorial debuts of the 2000s. So we'll see. But without further ado, I say let's just jump right into it. I'm excited to do this list. Yes. It was also, just like scores, very hard to narrow it down, but we are sticking to 10 this time. We're not doing 15. So, well, you want me to go first?
Yes, you can go first.
Well, at number 10 for me, I have That Thing You Do, directed by Tom Hanks, released in 1996. Tom Hanks was, of course, still is a mega movie star, but was at probably his peak around this time. He had just won an Oscar for Forrest Gump, and the year before he had just won another Oscar for Philadelphia. So he was, probably, the studios are probably like, whatever you want to do, Tom Hanks. And he said, you know what? I want to direct a movie. And I've loved That Thing You Do ever since I first saw it. I didn't get to see it in the theater, unfortunately, but it's the movie that made me want to start playing the drums. I haven't watched it in a while, but I probably need to revisit it. It's such a good movie, and I love it. And it was his first time behind the camera for a feature film, anyway. So, that's my number 10. That Thing You Do, Tom Hanks.
Okay, so before we made our list, or our official list, I made a list of predictions that I thought were going to be on Justin's list. That movie almost made it. When I made my first version of this predicted list, that was on there, but I switched it out for another movie because I was not sure. I still think that other movie is going to be on here, but it doesn't surprise me that it was on the list, and it doesn't surprise me that it was number 10 because right, I went back and forth. I was like, I don't know if I know Justin likes this movie. I don't know if he loves it, but I took it out and switched it out for another movie. So I'm a little upset that I switched it out. But this is just something that I was doing for my own pleasure, just to see how well I knew you.
We'll have to see at the end of the episode how many you got right. So
I'm confident about a good 6.
All right. Yeah. 6 out of 10. All right.
Yeah. My number 10 is 1997's Love Jones by Theodore Witcher. This is his directorial debut. Love Jones is, to me, one of the greatest romances ever. That this movie's on my top 100. I don't think Theodore Witcher has done much else, but this movie is excellent. It is the most accurate representation of love within the Black community that I have ever seen, especially amongst young people that are in their mid 20s to early 30s. It is very, very accurate. For those of you that have not seen it, think of Before Sunset. Yes, that's the first one, right?
Before Sunrise is the first one.
Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Midnight. Okay, that's right. Think of Before Sunrise, but with Black people.
Nice. I don't have much to say about this one because I've never actually seen Love Jones. So I love Before Sunrise, so I would definitely give that a shot. I would definitely watch it.
Yeah, I think you'll like it.
Yeah, very cool. All right, number 9 for me. I'm very curious if you had this one on the list for me. Mm-hmm. And that is The Muppet Christmas Carol, directed by Brian Henson in 1992.
I did not have that on the list.
I couldn't when I was going through the list of movies that were directorial debuts, I could not believe that this was a directorial debut. Now, Brian Henson obviously had worked with Jim Henson, his brother, and
Right.
it's his brother, right? Yeah, I believe it's his brother. Or was it his dad? Brian Henson was his son, or I don't remember. Anyway, Brian Henson was a puppeteer for the Henson Company, and but I thought he had directed movies before this one, but he hadn't. And it's one of my favorite Muppet movies. The Muppet Christmas Carol, I think, is number one, a fantastic adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Not that I've read the book, but I just think they do it so well. Michael Caine is an amazing Scrooge. I like watching it around Christmas time, and I just could not believe that it was a directorial debut. So that is my pick for number 9.
That's the first time I've ever heard you even mention that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I had a poster for it on my my closet door. My mom must have got it for free somewhere, because I've never I liked the movie, but never been a huge fan of it. Yeah. But yeah, that is an interesting entry. That did not make it to my predictions. Okay, number 9 for me, 1999's The Blair Witch Project.
Nice.
By Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. This movie took me 2 watches to like. The first watch, I was confused and bored, but I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. And I watched it years after it came out. It just came out in 99. I probably didn't watch it until 08, 07, 08, something like that. The second time I watched it, I was like, this movie is fantastic. This is the film that started the whole found footage subgenre of horror movies, which some would say is a bit oversaturated. But I still like found footage movies. I like when they're done differently. Yeah. Very unique. And this was definitely a very unique film when it came out. This had one of, if not the best marketing campaign of any film ever. Yeah. Because people, even after it came out, people didn't know whether it was real or not. The only other movie that I could think of like that was the first Paranormal Activity that had a similar marketing campaign. Yep. A viral marketing campaign. And, though for that film as well, people didn't really know whether it was real or fake. But this movie really springboarded that whole found footage subgenre. And at the time when it came out, it was the most profitable movie of all time.
Yeah.
Until Paranormal Activity.
Right.
I think Paranormal Activity is still the most profitable movie of all time. Oh, wow. When you consider budget to revenue,
box office, revenue.
Yeah, but I think this movie, I wrote it down somewhere. This movie had a budget of $35,000 and it made $248.6 million.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's insane. I have not watched this Blair Witch in a really long time. I should give it another rewatch. I kind of I fell out of love with the found footage genre, mainly because the Paranormal Activity kind of brought it back. Like Blair Witch introduced that genre. Paranormal Activity happened, which was a huge success. And then it was there was just a ton of found footage movies after Paranormal Activity. Yeah. And I started to not really like it.
And only a handful of them were good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And some of them, when we talked about Chronicle, that movie, some of it was cool, but some of it just doesn't, they had to kind of really stretch to make it a reason as to why somebody would be filming this particular moment and stuff like that. And then there were 2 characters shooting each other. That way they could have both angles. And you're just come on. But this movie, I think I definitely need to rewatch it. I remember reading when the movie came out. I unfortunately did not get to see it in the theater. But I did see it, I think, as soon as it hit video, because I was in high school and I remember referencing it the next year when I was a junior or senior. But anyway, I thought it was amazing the way it was made. How like I remember reading that like at night while they were camping in their tents, like the directors would come and like slip them notes about like what they were going to do the next day. And they would give like certain, like two of the actors information that like the third actor wouldn't have or something. So that way, like they just were all, it was really, really interesting the way they did it. And I remember there was like a mini documentary kind of behind the scenes thing that was all about those three campers. And I remember hearing about the Blair Witch Project and thinking it was a movie. But then I watched this little special on TV, and by the end of it, I went, wait, is this a true story? Like I was like so convinced that special did such a good job of making it seem real. And so I was so confused after that. I was like, is this like an actual thing? Yeah. So that's a fantastic pick. I thought about putting that on my list because it was a really well, I mean, it's a great debut. I mean, you can't,
absolutely. It doesn't get any better than that.
Right. In terms of profitability, that's very true.
Yeah. In terms of profitability. Yeah. Like, and what it like just means to just filmmaking in general. Like that's the real reason I put it on the list is because it like, I got a few movies on here. You can't tell the story of filmmaking without mentioning this movie.
Right.
Like in the entire history of filmmaking and like essential films to watch, it's not like, I don't want to say it's not a masterpiece, but like it for a found footage movie for what it is, it's perfect.
And it had a huge impact on Hollywood, you know, like you can't deny that.
Yes.
So, right.
Yes. And if you want to learn how to make literally something out of nothing,
right?
This and another film on my list is you can't go wrong with it. Like this film and the making of this film needs to be studied.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Well, very cool. That was your number 9. My number 8, kind of in a similar vein, and really like the 90s were there was a huge wave of independent filmmaking. Mm-hmm. It kind of started. A lot of people kind of started and realized I can do this myself. And that's what this next entry is. And that is El Mariachi by Robert Rodriguez, directed by Robert Rodriguez, released in 1992. He's got an amazing book called Rebel Without a Crew. I wish I still owned it. I let somebody borrow it and I never got it back. It's his like journal entries while he was making this movie. Even before he was making the movie, he went to a research hospital where they gave him, medication so they could test it to see what the side effects were. There's probably a placebo group and a group getting the actual medication. Mm-hmm. So he was there for, I want to say like 3 months or something, taking the medication, being studied, blah, blah, blah. And they gave him $7,000 for it. And he took that $7,000 and he went and made El Mariachi down in Mexico. And it's really quite interesting when you read the book because he was like, well, I know I've got down in Mexico, I'll have access to this bar. I'll have access to a school bus. I'll have access to this. And so he just wrote those things into the script. He's like, whatever I've got, that's going to be in the movie. And so it's kind of like what you said about Blair Witch. It's not a masterpiece, and it's low budget. It's obviously low budget. It's only $7,000. But I think for what he did with $7,000, like it's a really entertaining film. Mm-hmm. And I love it. He used to be my favorite director mainly because of this movie, the way he just decided, you know what, I'm doing this. He went and shot it himself for $7,000. He was his own crew. When his actors weren't in the scene, they were the ones like pushing him in the wheelchair so he could get like a dolly shot type of thing. It was very shoestring. Awesome. But he took that and he went, and I forget if it went to Sundance or if it went somewhere else, but it played some of the film festivals and that's where he met Quentin Tarantino, and he blew up after that. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. El Mariachi, Robert Rodriguez.
Number 8. This is a film that I do consider a masterpiece of animation. I don't think that we've seen many animated films come close to this type of film, and that is 1998's The Prince of Egypt, by Brenda Chapman, Steve Hickner and Simon Wells. It's a DreamWorks animation movie based on, the story of Exodus. I've always loved this movie, but the older I got, the more I love this movie. To me, it is a masterpiece of animation. Hans Zimmer did the score, which is absolutely amazing. The cast is stacked. And it's just a beautiful movie. This film needs to be studied for animation.
What year did you say that? What year did Prince of Egypt come out?
1998.
98. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you down here and say I have actually never seen the Prince of Egypt either.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I missed some of those animated movies that were released in the late 90s, and I don't know if it was just because, I was in high school. I was a sophomore in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
Sophomore, and I guess it was the end of my sophomore year, beginning of my junior year. And I think I just was, at that time of my life, I guess I just wasn't interested in going to see a cartoon in the theater. Yeah. I wanted to see the more adult movies or whatever. But so I missed out on a few of them, and that's one of them. And so, but I've always heard really good things about Prince of Egypt. So I just need to. I'm pretty sure we own it on DVD. It's one of my wife's DVDs. So I just need to pop it in one day and watch it.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that not a whole lot of people have seen, but everybody that has seen it loves the movie.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because it Disney had such a stranglehold on animation in the 90s and 2000s that any studio that tried to make an animated film, it just got, pushed aside by whatever Disney movie that was coming out, no matter how good it was.
Right.
So
I kind of remember that too. Like there's a few movies like the Road to El Dorado or something, which I never saw that one either. But I remember that one kind of almost coming out and then being forgotten about, essentially just because there was probably some Disney movie that came out around the same time that just overshadowed it.
Yeah, I think Road to El Dorado was 2000. So what came out in 2000? Maybe Lilo and Stitch? Something like that.
That was 2002, I think, actually.
2002? Okay.
I'm trying to think if there was like a Pixar movie. Was Toy Story 2 2000? Or that was 1999. I don't know. I'm not sure. All right. Number 7 for me. And actually, this is the movie that I thought you were describing when you started talking about animation and amazing animation. And
we both got the same number 7. I'm 100%.
I'm
100% sure.
And that is 1993's The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, we don't. Oh, we don't. That didn't make my list, but I knew for sure it was going to make yours.
Yeah, I couldn't deny it. I mean, we talked about this movie I think it was last year. We talked about it during Halloween or Christmas. I don't remember which holiday we decided to watch it on. I think it was Halloween, actually. But it's just incredible. I mean, it's still the fact that you can still buy merchandise with Jack Skellington's, face on it. Yeah. 30 years later. I mean, it's amazing. And I had, again, when I was coming up with this list, did not realize that this was Henry Selick's first directorial debut. He had made some shorts, and I want to say maybe I'm sure he worked as an animator, but he might have made like a music video or something too. But this was his feature film directorial debut. And I was blown away by that because it is astounding. So yeah, that's my number 7. I think I know what your number 7 is though.
Okay, yeah. My number 7 came out a year after the Prince of Egypt, and that's The Iron Giant by Brad Bird. This movie, I didn't see this movie for the first time until like 3 years ago. And man, this is a movie that was so hyped up for me. I was like, it can't be that good. And it was way better than I thought it was going to be. Like this movie, it's a beautiful, beautiful movie about a boy and his robot. It's a commentary on war and gun violence, and it's such a great movie. By the end of the movie, I felt that lump in my throat. Right. For spoiler alert, the Iron Giant sacrifices himself, but the very last scene of the movie is the Iron Giant pulling himself together. That's the moment where I felt the lump in my throat, where he was pulling himself together.
That's awesome.
It's just so beautiful. So beautiful.
It is a beautiful movie. And that one almost, that one's in, I have several honorable mentions that we will get to.
Oh yeah, we got
and that is one of them. It didn't quite make my list. I wasn't sure where to put it. So it didn't crack the top 10 for me, but that's awesome. Number 6 for me, I'm debating on whether I want to swap my 5 and 6. And I think I'm going to. Both of these movies, my 6 and my 5, I have not watched in quite a while. And so, yeah, I think I'll switch them. So number 6 now for me is another independent film that was, like I said, was kind of this wave of independent films.
Yeah, and I know what this one is.
And I don't know if you do actually.
Okay.
And this is The Brothers McMullen, directed by Edward Burns from 1995. I don't know what that is. I really like this movie. I actually kind of prefer Burns' second film, She's the One, over this one, but I still think this is a really great movie and a really great debut. And I'm kind of a sucker for low budget, dialogue heavy, character kind of driven movies like this. And so I really, really enjoy it. I think it was a really stellar debut. It's also got a great story too, where Edward Burns at the time when he made the movie was working for, I want to say like Entertainment Tonight or something like that, is kind of like a PA. Mm-hmm. And Robert Redford was going to be on, and Edward Burns had like a videotape of his movie, and he was like, this is my one chance. I've got to get this to Robert Redford. And so he did. He made sure he was on an elevator with Robert Redford, and he was like, I know this is like, probably not the best thing to do, but I made a movie. Would you please watch it? And apparently he did, and he got into Sundance, I think, that way or something, and then the rest is history, So that's
awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you hear stories like that, and then you're like, not everybody should do that. It's like, it's one of those things where like, you shouldn't do what I did, but I'm actually really glad that I did it. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like The Brothers McMullen a lot. It's a one that I need to rewatch because it's been a long time since I've seen it. But I can't deny that it was, in my opinion, a fantastic directorial debut.
That's another movie I've never heard you mention ever. Where are we at? 6?
6. Yeah, number 6.
Number 6 for me, 1991's Boys in the Hood by John Singleton. I don't know if many people know this, but I'm not one for hood movies because I think for the most part, once you've seen one, you've seen them all. But Boys in the Hood is such a good story about a realistic, it's a very realistic representation of growing up in a poor black neighborhood. And it is the prototypical hood movie, but in the best way possible. Like, I don't say all other hood movies, but most other hood movies come from this. Mm-hmm. And it kind of started that whole wave, and it's such a really, really well-written, thought-provoking film with performances that are stellar. Ice Cube in this movie is excellent. I'm not sure if this was his acting debut. He may have been in one film before this. I'm not entirely sure, but his performance in this movie is fantastic. The late great John Singleton, he did a fantastic job with this movie.
Yeah, and he was like super young. I was trying to look up just now while you were talking. He was, let's see if I can't do math in my head, 23 at the time of the movie's release. Yeah. So he was probably like 22 or something when they shot it. Which is just incredible. I am ashamed to say I've never seen this one either. This is one that I've heard a lot about. It was on that Speed podcast I was talking about, their episode. I think it was on both of their lists. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a movie that I have missed that I really need to watch.
Yeah, so it's on definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's on my list of movies to check out. So I unfortunately can't really chime in other than the fact that John Singleton was just so young when he directed it and did an amazing job with it, from what I've heard. Obviously, I haven't seen it. All right. Number 5 for me. We're in the top 5 now.
All right.
And this is another movie that I really need to revisit. but it is 1999's Being John Malkovich, directed by Spike Jonze.
That almost made it to my list.
Yeah.
It almost made it.
It is such an interesting, unique movie. Part of that I really kind of put more on Charlie Kaufman, but Spike Jonze did such a good job directing it, and they are, in my opinion, a really good match. And I know Charlie Kaufman now directs his own films, but I really kind of almost wish they would do something together again, because this and Adaptation are two of my favorite movies ever. And so, yeah, I would love to see them do something else together again. And this was just a unique movie with amazing performance by John Malkovich and John Cusack and Cameron Diaz and everybody in it. But it is, I remember seeing it and just being like, I want to make a movie like this. It was so just interesting and funny and cool. I liked it. I just love it. I think it's such a good movie. And to know that it was a first movie, it was just incredible.
Yeah, I've never seen it. But
oh, really?
Like I said, it almost made my list of predictions for you.
Oh, okay.
Because when I was making the list, I made like a list of like maybe 25 movies. And I think that one made it to like the top 12.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen it, but I did. It is on my watch list. I would like to see it. You mentioned that, who was the director of this movie again?
Spike Jonze.
Spike Jonze. Okay. You mentioned that you wanted to see Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman do another one together. That's how I feel about James Gunn and Zack Snyder. I really like Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead, yeah.
Yeah. And I really, really, really want them to collaborate again.
Yeah, that would be awesome, actually. I would love to see that. That'd be really, really cool. You may have never heard me talk about this movie either, the Being John Malkovich, but you have heard me talk about Adaptation. And you have to see this. Well, you don't have to, but I would recommend you seeing this before you see Adaptation, just because they reference Being John Malkovich in Adaptation.
Okay. Noted. Number 5, right? Okay.
Yes, number 5 for you.
Number 5 for me is a summertime classic. It's almost time to watch this movie, actually. And that is 1993's The Sandlot by David Mickey Evans. He wrote the movie, he narrated it, he directed it. Like this movie is his story from his childhood, and it is a classic in every sense of the word. It is the ultimate summertime movie. If you haven't seen this, you've been living under a rock. I feel sorry for you. But no, it's really good. Like every time I watch this movie, I want to go play baseball.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome. I have seen The Sandlot, but I'll tell you what, it's been a really long time. So it's definitely time for me to revisit this.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Top 4 for me now.
Top four.
I am 100% confident that the top 4 that I have, you have predicted that we're going to be on my list.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, number 4 for me is, well, I'll just no introduction. I'll just go right into it. 1994's The Shawshank Redemption, directed by Frank Darabont.
Yep. Thought that was going to be higher, but it's on there though.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When I say my number 3, you're going to be like, you put this above Shawshank? But it's but whatever. It's my list. I love Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's, based on a Stephen King story, and at Frank Darabont, to the fact that this was his directorial debut, it got nominated for Best Picture. I mean,
That's amazing.
He knew the assignment, and he delivered it perfectly. I mean, I have seen some people online talk about, I think I don't know. I think sometimes movies that are kind of universally loved every now and again start to get a little hated on. I think just because they're universally loved, not necessarily because it's a bad movie. It's like some people kind of convince themselves it's bad because everybody else loves it. And I've seen that a little bit with Shawshank, and I'm like, no, it's an amazing movie. It doesn't deserve that. So, it's just the fact that it was his first movie is just astounding. And it holds up for me, 30 years later. It's actually the 30th anniversary this year, for Shawshank Redemption. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about it other than it's fantastic. If you haven't watched it, it is definitely worth watching.
Yeah, that's another movie that I was an adult the first time I watched. And it is easily, it's not one of my favorite movies. It might squeeze its way in there if I watch it again.
Yeah.
But that first viewing was a very moving experience watching that film. Number four for me, 1995's Friday by F. Gary Gray. Another classic hood movie that isn't really about anything in particular, but each scene is so well written that it's just a great day in the life of two young black dudes just chilling. And the thing that I really like about this movie is the fact that about a little bit more than halfway through the movie, it becomes a completely different movie. This is a comedy. It is, it's full of laughs, jokes. It's primarily a comedy, but it takes a dark turn, maybe about 60% through the movie, and I really, really like it. From a writing standpoint, from Ice Cube's excellent script to F. Gary Gray's, he wrote that.
I forgot Ice Cube wrote that. Yeah.
And F. Gary Gray's direction, it's a fantastic directorial debut.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I've only seen that one once, and again, it's probably another one that I need to revisit, but it almost made it to my list too, because it even only having seen it once, I recognized how great it was. It was, like you said, it was funny. It was really well written, very well directed. It holds up. I mean, that's a movie that is still talked about today, I think. So that's a great choice.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? You and I have not had a single matching choice. Like normally our lists are very similar. Not this time around, which is kind of crazy. Very impressed. Number three for me.
I'm sure
one of our top threes.
Number three is going to be it.
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe. Okay, so number three for me, and you're going to be like, you put this above Shawshank, but I have seen this movie so many times. I absolutely love it. And again, independent film, part of this wave of independent cinema, and that is 1994's Clerks. Directed by Kevin Smith.
We got the same number three.
Yes, that's awesome. I love Clerks. It's, again, I said I liked low budget, dialogue heavy, character driven kind of stuff. And Kevin Smith is fantastic with dialogue. And even this his first movie, like some of the dialogue is so good, so punchy, so it's you can't help but watch these characters talking about Star Wars or whatever it is they're talking about, It's just he really kind of established his voice right away, I thought. And I really, really like this movie a lot. And it's I saw some of his movies out of order. He's got his View Askewniverse where Jay and Silent Bob show up in all these different movies. The first one I think I saw was I may have seen Mallrats first. I might be getting this wrong, but I was working at Blockbuster in the early 2000s, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back came out. And I watched it with my girlfriend at the time, and she was the one that was like, these guys were in a movie called Clerks. And and so then I had heard of Clerks. I knew, I remember when Clerks came out in 94, but never put it together that it was the same, because Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back does not look like the same movie as Clerks.
No.
And so I was like, really? And so then I think I rented Clerks and watched it after I watched Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and really fell in love with Clerks. I think I probably rewatched Mallrats at that point, and really just kind of became a big Kevin Smith fan around that time. And I'm still a big Kevin Smith fan, even though not all of his movies are as good as this. but I still really appreciate the movies that he makes. So so that's my number 3, Clerks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to echo everything that you said, but I will add, the same reason I put Blair Witch Project on this list is why I have Clerks on here. You cannot tell the story of filmmaking without mentioning Clerks. So,
and to go along with that, I mentioned El Mariachi earlier. Kevin Smith, because he went to film school briefly and then decided that he didn't want to sit through film school. He wanted to just make a movie. And he had read about Robert Rodriguez and El Mariachi and how Robert Rodriguez had access to certain things like the school bus, like I was talking about. And Kevin Smith said, well, what do I have? And he goes, well, I've got a convenience store. And so that's how like this whole movie just kind of came about. He was like, I've got a convenience store we could shoot in. Why don't we shoot a movie about guys who work at a convenience store? And so we wouldn't have, I don't think we would have had Clerks if we didn't have El Mariachi. And like you said, it's a part of film history. These independent movies that were made at this time period were so important to cinema, so.
Yeah, that from like 90 to 96 or something, 95, like the movies that came out in that time were just, like you said, with a shoestring budget and just making it because you wanted to make it. Like, that was a beautiful time in filmmaking history.
It really was, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it's number 2 for me then, right? All right, you might be surprised that this is not number 1, but for me, it's also the movie I've got playing on my TV at the moment. And it is 1994's Speed, directed by Jan de Bont.
Yeah. I knew that was coming.
This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I was actually thinking it might be, it's in my top 5. I might even bump it up to my top 4. I have grown to love this movie more and more as the years go on. Listening to that podcast that inspired this episode, the 50 Mile Per Hour podcast, has made me appreciate the film even more. Jan de Bont was, of course, a cinematographer who had been around for a long, long time. He was a cinematographer for Die Hard. He did The Hunt for Red October. I can't even... Basic Instinct, I think he was the cinematographer for. So he had done a ton of big movies. But this was the first time where he was in the director's chair, and he made almost a perfect movie. I mean, it's to me, it is one of the greatest action films, not just of the 90s, but ever. And I could pop this movie in and watch it any day of the week and twice on Sunday. I love this movie so much. And I think that for it to be his first movie, even though, like I said, he had been working within Hollywood, for a long, long time, I think is just amazing. And it's a movie that couldn't really be made today. There's so many things that they just would do so differently if this movie was made now.
Yeah, they could make it, but it wouldn't be nearly as good.
It wouldn't be nearly, yeah, exactly. And so I'm so appreciative that it got made when it did. I begged my parents to let me see it in the theater, and they wouldn't let me. But I've watched this movie so many times. I could probably quote most of it to you. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, the only movie that I can think of that was made recently that I don't want to say comes close to it, because it's not nearly as good as Speed, but has that same feel and vibe and like practical filmmaking is Ambulance.
I knew that's what you were going to say. Yeah, and that's kind of the vibe. I mean, I still have not actually watched Ambulance, but based off the trailer, I got that same feeling. And it takes place in LA, which Speed takes place in LA. Yeah. So I think that really helps it as well.
Yeah.
I need to watch Ambulance.
You should. I think you'd enjoy it.
I think I would too, yeah.
It is a little bit it's Michael Bay, and
right.
It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's got a lot of Michael Bay isms, and it is it's very self-referential.
I got you. Okay.
So there are a lot of references to other Michael Bay movies.
Gotcha. All right.
So yeah. My number 2, one of the greatest animated films ever made. This movie is so beautiful. I love watching this movie. I love the tone of it, the music, everything about it. And that is 1991's Beauty and the Beast by Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise. This movie, I think it's the third movie in the Disney Renaissance. Second.
Yeah, Little Mermaid was first, and then Beauty and the Beast, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Little Mermaid was 89. This was 91. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this was the second movie in the Disney Renaissance, and this, oh man, like it don't get no better than this. And for this to be a directorial debut is mind-boggling to me. I couldn't believe it when I was looking this movie up. Well, not looking the movie up, but like doing this list, and that was on there. I was like, that wow. Wow.
Yeah, I've thought about, like, I don't know why I was thinking about this lately, but I was thinking about, like, what is my favorite of the Disney Renaissance? Which one's my favorite? And it's a really hard choice because this, Lion King and Aladdin are all so good.
You could really switch them out for real.
You really could. I mean, I think it just depends on the day. Like, ask me on any given day, I might give you a different answer. So, but this movie was nominated for Best Picture, and they said it's responsible for creating the Best Animated Feature category. Which, if that's true, I looked that up, and the Best Animated Feature category didn't come till way later. So I don't know why they waited so long. If this was the movie, if this was the reason, but it was nominated for Best Picture in 1991 or the 1992 Oscars. And yeah, you can't. I mean, I loved this movie as a kid, and I used to draw a lot when I was a kid, and I used to draw the Beast everywhere. So yeah, that is undeniably a great choice. And it is incredible to think that it was a directorial debut.
So do you want to go straight into number one, or do you want to do honorable mentions?
Let's do honorable mentions first, and then save our number ones.
Okay. You go first with your honorable mentions.
Sure. I'll just kind of go through them somewhat quickly. I've got, speaking of Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King was a directorial debut. Roger Allers and Rob Minkoff, 1994. I think that's incredible because that's such a good movie. I've got Bad Boys, Michael Bay. That was a directorial debut. He was a music video director. This was his first feature film. I had Iron Giant on here. Hard Eight, Paul Thomas Anderson, 1996. Toy Story, John Lasseter, 1995. That one was really hard to kind of keep off the list because, again, talking about just cinematic influence or cinematic impact. I mean, that was the first computer animated film
feature.
And it was so good. So that one's probably number 11. If I were, if we had made a list, in the top 11. Dumb and Dumber, the Farrelly Brothers. I know that's kind of crazy, but I just thought it was funny that was a directorial debut. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Guy Ritchie. American Beauty, Sam Mendes. This is another movie kind of like Shawshank that I was talking about, where I've seen kind of people hate on this movie, and I don't know if that's just backlash for Kevin Spacey or what, because I think it's a good movie. I think I have not watched it in a few years, but I think it still holds up. Yeah. And you got to say it's impressive that your directorial debut wins Best Picture at the Oscars. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, and then lastly, I have The Addams Family. Barry Sonnenfeld. Yeah. Another cinematographer turned director. And that was, I didn't realize that was his first film, 1991's The Addams Family. And that's, talk about, establishing a voice. I mean, he was Tim Burton-esque, I guess you could say, but in his own way. And I think, The Addams Family was, I really liked that movie. And it was, he went on to do, I think he did the second one, but then, I mean, he went to do Men in Black. So
Men in Black, yeah.
It's such a good debut, The Addams Family, in my opinion.
Yeah, Addams Family is one of my honorable mentions. I love Barry Sonnenfeld's comedic style. It's very tongue in cheek. There's always something hilarious going on, but everyone is so serious. And I love it.
Yeah. I do too.
The highway scene or the highway scene when the alien is giving birth in Men in Black.
Right. Men in Black,
hilarious. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Addams Family, 1997's Soul Food by George Tillman Jr. That's a great one because it's all just kind of too accurate to black families and drama within the black family. But I mean, it's not just about the drama. But I got 1996's A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. That was Martin Lawrence's directorial debut, and it was pretty good for a directorial debut. That movie had me scared of Lynn Whitfield. She was so crazy.
Wow.
1995's Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls by Steve Odekirk.
Even the first Ace Ventura was a
directorial debut. Yeah. I'm in the minority. I think When Nature Calls is better than Pet Detective.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love that movie so much. Me and my wife went out to eat at a seafood boil restaurant, and they had it on at the bar, and I was quoting every line. My wife was so embarrassed. I was like, I'm sorry, this movie is fantastic.
Bumblebee tuna. I love the Ace Ventura movies too. I think I probably lean more towards the first one than the second one, but I do like the second one a lot. I need to watch it again. But I have a great. It came out when I was in middle school, and I loved it when it came out. Yeah. And my grandfather came down to visit us from Michigan, and I somehow convinced him to take me to go to the Dollar Theater to see Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. I had already seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I really just wanted to see it again. I don't know if I actually thought my grandfather was going to like it. But he walked out of the movie, and I don't remember if I asked him how it was or if my mom and dad asked him how it was or something, but his response was, "It was a waste of $1."
Oh man. Nah, I love that movie. I wore that VHS out.
Yep.
Bad Boys is on there, Michael Bay. Speed is in my honorable mention. The Santa Claus, John Paskin, 1994. I wanted to put this on the list. This probably was going to be number 11, but all the other movies that I mentioned are significantly better. Nightmare Before Christmas, 1993's Menace to Society by the Hughes brothers.
Yep.
I wanted to really put that one on there. I actually watched this one recently for the second or third time. I'll just say second time. And this is 1991's New Jack City by Mario Van Peebles. Very good movie. And I love this. It's the way it's shot is very unique. Some scenes kind of remind me of a music video. I don't think Mario Van Peebles has done music videos before. But that's a really good directorial debut. And my last honorable mention is 1990's Tremors by Ron Underwood.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I rewatched that somewhat recently. That is a good movie.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well,
moment of truth.
Our number one picks. I'm actually curious if we're going to have the same one or if but I don't know. It wasn't on your honorable mention, so we're
going to have the same one.
We're not?
No. Oh, well, okay. Well, this movie, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And this movie is in my honorable mentions, but I'll let you say it first.
Okay, all right. This movie used to be my favorite movie of all time until I kind of reevaluated and really decided that Jurassic Park deserved the number one spot.
Mm-hmm.
But that is 1992's Reservoir Dogs by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
This movie's probably not even in my top 5 as much. I really have decided that I like Pulp Fiction more than Reservoir Dogs. And if I'm being honest, I actually like Speed more than this movie, but I thought this one had more of this was just such a strong directorial debut, and it had such an impact, and it just really established who Quentin Tarantino was, and showed his voice. And like I said, this used to be my favorite movie of all time. I really do love Reservoir Dogs, and so I couldn't deny that it deserved the top spot in my opinion for directorial debuts, because it showed just how much of a powerhouse he was just right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And so it's another one that I haven't rewatched recently, and really probably do need to rewatch it again, or just have like a Tarantino marathon. But yeah, it is absolutely incredible in my opinion.
I don't know how I forgot to put that in my honorable mentions, but yeah, that was definitely in my honorable mentions. I told you I was gonna get 6, and I got 6.
Nice. What were the 6 that you got? Reservoir Dogs, Speed, Clerks, Shawshank.
Yeah. El Mariachi, Shawshank, Speed, Reservoir Dogs, Clerks, and Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nice. All right.
The other 4 were Lion King, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
I thought about that one.
Con Air.
I thought about that one too.
And Star Trek First Contact.
Oh, yeah. You know, I was actually thinking about that movie this morning and about how maybe it should be on my top 10. And I forgot about it between then and now. So you're right. That I didn't even mention that in my honorable mentions. That definitely is worth an honorable mention. Jonathan Frakes, Star Trek First Contact. Maybe we'll say that would be number 12. Toy Story number 11. Star Trek First Contact number 12.
Okay. My number 1, 1994's The Lion King.
Yes.
Roger Allers, Rob Minkoff. Another animated classic based on Shakespeare.
Yep.
Hamlet. A lot of people say that Disney ripped off another movie called Kimba the White Lion. That's actually not entirely true. Disney, like Walt Disney, and the people that made Kimba the White Lion, the guy that made that, they were actually supposed to collaborate and make a Lion King movie. I don't know if it was going to be called The Lion King, but somehow it never happened, and they both made their own version of that movie. So it wasn't. It's not a ripoff. It's just two people had the same idea and just decided to adapt.
Went separately with it. Basically.
They went separately. Yeah, but yeah, it. I mean, it's The Lion King. It speaks for itself.
Yeah.
That great music from Elton John. I mean,
yep. And Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer won an Oscar for the music for this movie.
Yes. The stacked cast: James Earl Jones, Matthew Broderick, Jason Weaver.
Yeah.
Nathan Lane. Nathan Lane.
Jeremy. You say Jeremy Irons? Yeah, you might.
I did not say Jeremy Irons, but Jeremy Irons.
So good.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what I was talking about when you mentioned Beauty and the Beast. It's like the Disney Renaissance was just amazing, and on any given day, I don't honestly know which one I would pick. Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, or Aladdin. Those are my top 3, and even some of the ones that came after it, which I didn't see in theaters, but I know a lot of people really love, like Pocahontas and Hunchback of Notre Dame and Little Mermaid, which came out before it. I mean, they're all just Disney was at the top of their game.
Knocking it out of he was knocking it out of the park for a decade straight. I'm not big on Pocahontas. I watched that not too recently, like 3 years ago with my wife, and we both kind of had the same opinions. Like, this is not quite as good as I remember.
Yeah.
But it was still good. There's one that I can't watch with the same lens. Because I did some research on the character itself, and it kind of made me upset, and that's Tarzan. But we'll get into that. Not on the podcast.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Yeah. Behind the scenes, all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's our top. At first I thought we were flying through them. I was like, this is gonna be a short episode. Our score episode was like an hour and 40, but I think we did pretty well time wise. So
I think that's because we both nerded out on scores.
On the scores one, yeah, we did, and we did 15 instead of 10. But
right.
But this was a lot of fun, and I really liked that our lists were so different. The only movie that ended up on both of our lists was Clerks.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, I really love doing these top 10s with you. I think this is definitely something we should keep adding to our episode rotation.
Yes.
So I think next up we should definitely do directorial debuts of the 2000s. And if you guys have any ideas on top 10 lists that you would like to hear from us, let us know. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let us know. You can always talk to us. You can always reach out to us at cinemaheroes.com. You could comment or message us on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below what you think we should do, what top 10 lists you think we should do. Give the video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, though. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.